July the 4th, 2024. That's it. The election is over. The votes have been cast. The polling stations have closed. And the exit poll is in. And Labour is on course for a landslide. According to the exit poll, Labour will win 410 seats. The Conservatives are down to 131. The Lib Dems up to 61. The SNP down to 10. Reform UK forecast to win 13 MPs. And the others, mostly in Northern Ireland, are on 23. So let me just repeat those figures again. The exit poll commissioned by the BBC, ITV and Sky News, conducted by Ipsos. Labour on course to win 410 seats. That would be their third best performance ever, beating 1945 but falling short of 1997 and 2001. The Conservatives down to 131 MPs. That's their worst ever performance. Worse than 1997, worse even than 1906. The Lib Dems on 61 would be their second best ever result, second only to 2005 under Charles Kennedy. The SNP reduced to just 10 MPs, having previously at one stage had almost every MP in Scotland. Reform UK, remember a party which didn't exist at the last election, according to the exit poll, on course for 13 seats, and the others on 23. This would give Labour a majority of 170 seats. It's the exit poll, live on Times Radio. Our political editor, Kate McCann, is here. Kate, your reaction to that exit poll. I mean, where to begin, first of all, what it means to the parties.
Yeah, look, this would be an absolutely incredible result for Labour. And let's just take a moment here, I think, because throughout this campaign, it's been really clear that Labour has had around a 20-point lead on the Tories in every single poll. But the scale of this, if this exit poll is correct, is absolutely phenomenal. The swing that Keir Starmer will have had to achieve to get these results from the place that Jeremy Corbyn left that party in previous elections is absolutely unprecedented. Yes, it doesn't hit the same heights as Labour's highest victory. That would be 418 seats compared to the exit poll, which says 410. But coming from where this party has come from, this is an absolutely phenomenal turnaround if these results are correct. For the Tories, 131 seats is predicted here. It will be much better than what Tory HQ had expected. Some of their own polling had them on around 80 seats, Matt.
Well,
tonight.
some even suggest they might be neck and neck with the Lib Dems.
Yeah, and pushing them into potentially not even being the opposition party. You know, the early reaction that I've got from one Tory here is that this would be a relatively good result. I think they will be very happy with a result around 131 seats. But Reform, 13 seats for Reform. Now, that far and away is beyond what most people expected. Lots of people suggested 2 to 3 seats for Reform. Nigel Farage and potentially Lee Anderson. If Reform are touching 13 seats, that says that their votes are spread pretty decently across the country. And that is a real significant moment, I think, in British politics.
Let's bring in our pollster, James Johnson. How does this compare with expectations? Let's start actually where Kate left off. That this reform, that's much, much bigger than anyone is contemplating.
But they've actually managed to, going by this exit poll, get into double digits. That's a really significant base to then take off and try and overtake the Conservatives as the main opposition in the years to come. That has bucked expectations. It's going to be really interesting to see what the voting intention number is on Reform, to see whether actually they're, as Kate alluded to there, being a bit more efficient in their vote on a good solid vote share, or whether actually they've actually managed to buck even the vote intention expectations. Look, this is a huge result for Labour. I think those expectation changes about the Conservatives and Labour are not going to matter so much after this. That is a thumping majority. And the Conservatives, even though they're not at the below 100 extinction level that they were fearing, they are not going to be happy overall with that result.
I mean, it's worth pointing out, just to put this in context, in 1997, when John Major, after more than a decade in power and New Labour came in under Tony Blair, he still won 165 seats. In 1906, the great wipeout of the Tory party, their Liberal landslide, they still got 156 seats. To be reduced, supposedly the world's oldest and most successful political party, to be reduced to 131 MPs.
if you were saying to me at any point when I worked in number 10 under Theresa May that we'd be facing a result like that, I would tell you were being stupid. I'd tell you it wasn't possible. That is a really, really dire result for the Tories. If you'd have asked me that 6 weeks ago, I would have said it was a remote possibility. The big difference in this campaign has been Nigel Farage and Reform. If the right vote is split, like it has been, and the Labour vote is relatively consolidated, then Labour gets a massive landslide, and that's just what we're seeing happen today.
And clearly there's a whole question about what happens to the Conservative Party now, not least who's left, but we've got several hours to unpick that. Callum, clearly early days yet. In terms of looking ahead, how long until we get a real result rather than relying on the exit poll?
Yeah, lots to go, lots to come, of course. 11:30 is when we're expecting the first result. That would be from Blyth and Ashington, and results after that from sort of 11:45 onwards. The real crunch of results is after 3 a.m. Between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. we get hundreds. If everything goes according to plan, those are estimated times. I think one thing to pay attention to throughout the night, of course, is the big names. Those recognisable cabinet position names that could now be vulnerable. I've just been looking through the exit poll information. It looks like Rishi Sunak is on course to hold his seat. James Cleverly on course to hold his seat. Jeremy Hunt looks like he will lose his seat to the Liberal Democrats in Godalming and Ash. And just by way of how the night unfolds, the first of the kind of big beasts, if you like, the big names that we're keeping an eye on, is Richard Holden, the Conservative Party chair. And his result, his declaration is due about 12:15. That's in Basildon and Billericay. And at the moment, the information, the data suggests that one is too close to call.
And of course, he went there because his seat was abolished and he was sort of parachuting at the last minute to some sort of anger by local people. If you are just tuning in and joining us, just to remind you again of the exit poll released in the last 7 or so minutes, saying Labour is on course for a landslide. 410 Labour MPs, which is extraordinary when you think where they were under Jeremy Corbyn in 2019, when all the speculation was that they would need at least 2 elections to get back into contention. The Conservatives reduced to 131 MPs. Again, extraordinary after Boris Johnson's majority of 80 seats in 2019. The Lib Dems up to 61, according to this. That would put them just behind their high point in their history since they were formed in 1988 under Charles Kennedy. Reform UK, a party which didn't exist at the last election, was the Brexit Party, became the Reform UK Party, on course for 13 seats. We're talking about. Callum, we should touch on the SNP.
Yeah.
10 seats. So, this is extraordinary. If you go back to, 2015, when they won all bar 3 of the seats in Scotland.
Yeah, absolutely astonishing. So worth noting that boundary changes mean the total number of seats in Scotland is down from 59 to 57. And yes, this exit poll suggests that the SNP would win only 10. Now, in the context of the build-up to this, the SNP were kind of aiming for 20. That would have been seen as a decent result. Still, a quite radical, drastic reduction in seats, it's worth noting. Probably mostly at the expense of Labour. In terms of seats to look out for telling the story in Scotland, which has always been close in any number of constituencies, over a third of 2019 Scottish MPs had a majority of fewer than 10 points heading into this election. It's been really close across Scotland. I've picked out 3 seats in Scotland that I think will help us tell a bit of the story. So Paisley and Renfrewshire South. This is a Labour SNP toss-up. Most notable, 2015, this was when Mary Black beat Douglas Alexander, as you mentioned, Matt, in that surge. Douglas Alexander standing elsewhere in this election. So that's one to look out for in terms of the Labour SNP contest. Aberdeenshire North and Moray East. This has become almost notorious in this election campaign because Douglas Ross, who, well, I suppose now was Scottish Conservative leader, took over that seat from David Duguid as he lay in a hospital bed recovering from serious illness. If Douglas Ross holds on to that seat, they'll likely hold on to more across Scotland, the Scottish Conservatives. They've got 6 currently. And then the other one I wanted to highlight was Mid Dumbartonshire, which is a toss-up really between the SNP and the Lib Dems. Again, perhaps most notable because in 2019, this was where Jo Swinson, who was Liberal Democrat leader at the time, lost her seat. And if the SNP win there, that would indicate a sort of better than expected night for them. But across Scotland, seats, sorry to use the cliche, on a knife edge, but that result for the SNP of 10 predicted in this exit poll would be devastating.
And particularly after John Swinney said that, this is, give us the vote and we can push for independence. And after this happened with Nicola Sturgeon and Humza Yousaf. Clearly a terrible night for them. Keir Starmer's just tweeted. He has said, thanking people who voted for him and put their trust in a changed Labour Party. Revealed his on-course, after the exit poll, revealed his on-course for a landslide. He said to everyone who's campaigned for Labour in this election, to everyone who voted for us and put their trust in our changed Labour Party, thank you. Obviously, more reaction to it coming in all the time. Kate, what you're hearing? Kate, we can.
Yeah, I mean, speaking to Conservatives at the moment, they are saying it's as bad as they thought it was going to be. Some of them saying it will make the party unrecognisable from the position it was in previously. And that is the reality here. I mean, what the Conservatives are looking at, 131 potentially MPs in the House of Commons. It will be a vastly, vastly different Conservative Party. We're going to have to wait and see how many of those really high-profile MPs ultimately end up losing their seats. But this is going to mean a period of, potentially 2 terms out of office for the Conservative Party to try and get back to a position where they can actually be an election-winning force once again.
Although we should say that's what we said in 2019. Politics is incredibly volatile,
and that's actually it's a point worth making, that volatility, because 2019 was unprecedented in lots of ways, and I'm sure James can explain this better than I can. But for Boris Johnson to be an incumbent prime minister, to be able to get the swing that he got was almost unprecedented, I think, at that point in time. What we're seeing here is phenomenal, but I think what we have to try and work out is how shallow this is going to be in terms of a sort of a win for Keir Starmer, and what that's going to mean for some of the really difficult problems he's going to have to solve as Prime Minister.
Thanks for that, Kate.